bringing more than 15 years of RTO compliance and growth experience. We are also joined by Vanessa McCarthy, Assessment Compliance Specialist and founder of Prickly to Sweet and Validated, with over 20 years of experience in vet assessment and validation. This session brings technology, data, and expert human judgment together because better tools strengthen professional decision-making. They do not replace it. Vet Advisory Group's compliance retainers work alongside RTO teams through internal audits, documentation and marketing reviews, validation, and ongoing operational support. Vet Resources also offers more than 25,000 audit-ready products across over 27 training packages. The webinar will begin shortly. For RTO compliance and resource support, call 1-800-959-958. Welcome to the Vet Resources monthly webinar series. Today we explore assessment validation for RTO growth, smarter strategies, stronger outcomes, and the role of AI. We'll begin with recent ASQA updates, then examine smarter validation, stronger assessment systems, quality improvement, and practical uses of AI. Joining us is Ben Thacker, CEO and founder of Vet Resources, Vet Advisory Group, and Stanford Institute of Technology, bringing more than 15 years of RTO compliance and growth experience. We are also joined by Vanessa McCarthy, Assessment Compliance Specialist and founder of Prickly to Sweet and Validated, with over 20 years of experience in vet assessment and validation. This session brings technology, data, and expert human judgment together because better tools strengthen professional decision-making. They do not replace it. Vet Advisory Group's compliance retainers work alongside RTO teams through internal audits, documentation and marketing reviews, validation, and ongoing operational support. Vet Resources also offers more than 25,000 audit-ready products across over 27 training packages. The webinar will begin shortly. For RTO compliance and resource support, call 1-800-959-958. Welcome to the Vet Resources monthly webinar series. Today we explore assessment validation for RTO growth, smarter strategies, stronger outcomes, and the role of AI. We'll begin with recent ASQA updates, then examine smarter validation, stronger assessment systems, quality improvement, and practical uses of AI. Joining us is Ben Thacker, CEO and founder of Vet Resources, Vet Advisory Group, and Stanford Institute of Technology, bringing more than 15 years of RTO compliance and growth experience. We are also joined by Vanessa McCarthy, Assessment Compliance Specialist and founder of Prickly to Sweet and Validated, with over 20 years of experience in vet assessment and validation. This session brings technology, data, and expert human judgment together because better tools strengthen professional decision-making. They do not replace it. Vet Advisory Group's compliance retainers work alongside RTO teams through internal audits, documentation and marketing reviews, validation, and ongoing operational support. Vet Resources also offers more than 25,000 audit-ready products across over 27 training packages. The webinar will begin shortly. For RTO compliance and resource support, call 1-800-959-958. Welcome.
Hi everyone, we are very excited to have you all here with us like every other month, and we have one of the most interesting topics. Assessment validations have always been one of the most debatable topics in the industry. We all are somehow struggling or managing assessments, but today we will be talking about assessment validation for RTO's growth. We'll request you if you can please turn your cameras on, can really make our Fridays happy too. If possible, that'll be a really nice thing. So today we are delighted to welcome two experienced voices from the vet sector who bring valuable perspectives on assessment quality, compliance, and continuous improvement. Joining us is Vanessa McCarthy, who brings over 20 years of experience in vocational education and training. With a strong focus on assessment compliance, validation, and quality improvement, Vanessa is the founder of Validated and Prickly to Sweet. She has worked in innovative approaches to help RTOs review, strengthen their assessment practices. Through her work, Vanessa continues to support vet community in building stronger assessment systems and improving quality outcomes. We are also pleased to welcome Ben Thacker, who brings over 15 years of experience working across VET and RTO sector with a strong focus on compliance, quality strengths, and supporting RTOs through their growth journey. Ben is the founder and CEO of VET Resources, VET Advisory Group, and Stanford Institute of Technology, Melbourne, and also a director of Ostra College. Through his work with RTOs and education providers, Ben has developed deep insights into practical challenges organizations face when navigating compliance and continuous improvements. Together, Ben and Vanessa will bring combination of assessment expertise, compliance expertise, and practical RTO insights. We are excited to have them share their knowledge, perspectives with all our RTO leaders, managers, and teams today. And now I'll let Vanessa share her screen and start with the presentation. We are all very excited. Thank you. Thank you so much. We can see
Okay,
you, Vanessa.
I'll get there. I'll get there. I think it's this one. Yes. Oh. Just when you think everything is going to work, it just takes a moment.
You can see it.
I press present. Yay! Everybody can see that now, hopefully.
Yep.
All good. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Yes, my name's Vanessa McCarthy. There is actually a few more years attached to that 20 years experience, but we'll just move on from there. Today we're talking about the validation for RTO growth. Apologies if I go too fast. I'm sure there'll be plenty of time afterwards to actually have a chat. So today we are obviously looking at the concept of our changing landscape in vocational education, and particularly around the validation area. Validation has now become the central to RTO quality and compliance outcomes because it's one of the key areas that really gets you to hone in and have a look at how you're going with your full standards as well as other risk areas. It increased scrutiny on the evidence sufficiency across all units, but there's also other elements attached to these areas that need to be considered, and it goes well beyond just assessment. So if you're thinking also about the higher expectations for industry engagement in the validation process, the standards have shifted the focus to quality, integrity, and outcomes. There was always a requirement to include industry, but now it actually is the demonstrable, measurable performance, and it's not just for compliance. And that is that direct link with industry and the outcomes of your training and assessment. The validation of the assessment system is what is actually written in the standards. It's the system of your assessment, and this has to be created in a systematic and data-driven evidence way to enable you to manage the risk against your whole organisation. So we'll dive into that a little bit more, but manual reviews, audits and validation can't provide this information fast enough when we're dealing in the AI environment that we have. That's the other changing landscape, is that our compliance process needs to be just as fast. It has to be repeatable. It has to be a routine structure, and it has to be transparent with real data, because the requirement is, the key change is standard 1.5G, how outcomes of the assessment validation are used to inform change to the full assessment system. And also standard 1.3, the outcomes of any reviews also inform any necessary changes. So it's not just review your units, one or two, over a particular period of time, and you're good to go if you say, yes, we've done it and here's some evidence. That's no longer the case. This landscape has absolutely changed. So we're increasing the operational pressure on any manual validation methods. So moving towards how this then actually drives growth in your RTO, it drives growth through what sort of data you can now obtain if you're using a system that will give you this data. So consider whether the information you've gathered previously in your manual validation, were you able to actually identify any inconsistencies between assessors? And you might say yes, but did you actually measure it? So structured validation with measurable outcomes reduces that assessor variation by 20 to 40%, improving your defensibility to say, yes, we did the validation. Yes, we found these identifying areas of across our assessors. And then what did you do with it? So that's one area. Another one is it will reduce the amount of rework. If you're doing your validation on a very regular basis as part of your processes throughout, not just because it's time to validate. And if you have a very systematic approach, you can pick up issues quicker and make it more visible to your whole team by doing it using a new structured validation process. So 30 to 50% fewer post-delivery corrections are reported with a clearer assessment design. So you're linking any issues you found back to how your actual assessment is designed, created, including industry-specific contextualization. So it obviously will also make that readiness obviously a better outcome, or you have better evidence. But to be perfectly honest, every provider I work with throughout our company of education compliance validators, it's not audit that they're really focused on. They are focused on making sure those learners not only get what they need during the current course, current unit, current qualification they're doing, but they want them to come back. They want industry to be aware that they are the leader. Audit or no audit, at the end of the day, RTOs are not there for audit. They are there to deliver quality training and assessment. So the next part, obviously, to think about your growth in that area is those efficiencies across your operation. And this is where AI-assisted analysis can really reduce those manual checking times. And it's freeing up not only assessors' capacity, it's providing those areas where they need more professional development. And when you start pulling apart all the criteria you're looking at in validation, you should be able to link it back to all your RTO areas of operation and therefore areas of risk. So when your validation system is giving you the data that links all these areas together, it goes beyond assessment. And again, remembering that in standard 1.5, these processes are meant to be informed by any risk to training outcome and any changes to training product, any feedback from any of your areas, whether it's your trainers, your assessors, industry, your actual students directly. You have to consider all of these things under validation anyway. Why not create a situation where you can directly link it back to any growth area of your RTO or mitigating risk, which will then obviously enable your team and your products to grow further. So from this point, we're going to have a look at the role of AI in this situation. Now, there are a variety of different AIs. There is obviously generative AI. And if you're in this space, you'll know that generative AI is where you can ask it a question or make it create something for you and it comes back. Now, automated evidence analysis, this is where you're using a different type of AI. You're identifying a process that will review content for you, and with the right rules and algorithm and structure and boundaries, you're getting it to identify gaps against a particular standard. Prickly to Sweep, for example, does that related to units of competency for not only assessment tools, but also for trainer and assessor competency and currency. So that role there will assist anybody doing validation. And please be very wary of the fact I'm saying assist. So we'll go into what I mean by that in just a second. So assessment design review against unit requirements, obviously, yes, but also there are cohort comparisons and identifying if you're looking at assessors across multiple areas and any variation they might have regarding the way they mark assessments. Risk identification across validation cycles. So that in particular has to do with when you're doing your validation, but it might also be considering
Vanessa,
different...
Vanessa,
Yes.
apologies to bother you. there is some issues with the mic, the issues we were troubleshooting before the presentation. If it can
Okay.
be, yes.
Can you hear me now?
Little better, but if you can just try removing the upper part of it, I guess it'll be more better.
Okay, hang on. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Better?
Some,
Or how about I
yes,
just get
yes.
rid of it altogether and maybe you can listen now? Can you
Yes,
hear me now?
yes. If you can use some other mic, that'll be more better. Right,
Okay,
sure.
let's see if this is working. Is that better for everybody? Hopefully you can say yes, no. I'm just going to bring up something else to make sure that it's working properly. Okay, apologies about that. When you're talking away, you don't have a tendency to listen too much to everybody else is saying, okay.
It's better, but I guess there's some echo coming from maybe the speakers around your device. So if you can lower the speaker's volume down, I guess
Yes,
that'll
we'll give
work
that a
even
go.
more better. Works.
I just might turn those ones off altogether. See if that works.
Yes, Andrew also suggested that's an encoding issue. If you can just drop out and rejoin, that'll be better.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Nicole.
Okay. So continuing on, the other role of AI would be those areas related to governance and reporting. And this is really big related to the visualization of data and making it in real time information rather than expecting people to read through lots and lots of information and data you might gather on a manual basis, spreadsheets and those sorts of things. If you can have a system using AI to utilize its ability to provide visuals of gaps and other information or indicators of problems or notification of what else actions need to be done to achieve the areas of compliance and risk rating that you're after. So obviously, evidence intelligence comes to the fact of you know what evidence is for a start and know how to read it. So moving beyond manual interpretation of evidence, additional analysis by AI can also assist there. Mapping evidence to unit requirements with precision, yes, but I'd even go beyond that. It's a lot more to do with understanding what information is related to what. So instead of reading through all of that stuff in the data, do you know even what hits what? If you're looking at dates in assessment, do you understand where that information is actually linked to? Back to your LMS, back to records management, back to student engagement and whether they're completing what's required over a period of time that's necessary or what you're trying to achieve from a quality output. It will also give you those gaps and inconsistencies across all those areas as we've spoken to about before, and also tracking sufficiency trends. So talking again about growth, all processes cost an organization, no matter what industry you're in, whether it be in RTO, whether it be in a support organization such as myself, or whether it be in an industry. So you're supporting a construction industry. They know exactly how much something costs to be able to do the project. RTO should be exactly the same. And why not get that information when you're doing validation, as long as you understand how the data all links together. So obviously, the other thing too is supporting not only assessors, but also anybody else in your RTO that has those impacts on the learner. Okay, so the next thing of what it does not do, and this is really important too, because it is not a golden ticket to do nothing. AI does not replace assessors and take over their professional role in determining a competency. As we have very clearly identified from an assessment method point of view, you cannot have an AI system marking anything because it doesn't meet the credential policy. Simple as. Okay, so it also doesn't make compliance decisions for you or act as a substitute for the judgment of any regulator or any regulatory requirements. Human expertise remains the centre to every assessment outcome. It remains the centre to any validation outcome. It remains the centre to any improvement. requirements or outcomes from validation. So it can strengthen capability, but it doesn't substitute. It can assist the judgment of people with the fact that you now have more information to make decisions based on the data. So they're the things it can do. And AI obviously is a tool in this respect, and it won't ever replace, although it can actually make people feel very fearful because they might think what they may have not been doing right will be found out. I almost guarantee you it will. But it's always good to actually improve your knowledge related to all these areas. So innovation across the sector, these are the areas that AI can assist both across the sector and in your RTO. We're looking at integrating workflows, making things more visible and reducing, went the wrong way, reducing the manual checking, because it can do it much quicker. I can even identify to you over the last month, the systems I have in place have assisted providers to review over 600 student samples in 1 month. So that's a significant reduction. And there's also stronger governance, continuous improvement cycles, obviously then embed the information. So what are our priorities for validation? Well, evidence and data sufficiency. We've been talking a lot about how it can assist. Transparent validation is one of those areas as well. Authentic task clarification. Before you go anywhere near any of that, you really have to get the concept of understanding what it is your RTOs or what the risks are for your RTO, and that your team are understanding where everything is at. So understanding your RTO risk goes beyond just regulatory requirements.
Sorry, Vanessa, if you can just rejoin the meeting, it'll be more better. In last 1 minute, we were facing this sound issues again, so it might be the encoding issue. A lot of people have suggested if you can just rejoin again.
Vanessa, just go to the 3 dots and go to the audio setting, and just maybe there is an option for high fidelity music mode.
I'm so sorry about that.
That's fine.
Audio setting.
And then go to the at the end high fidelity music mode. Maybe turn on that part.
Okay, turn it on now.
Say it again.
Turn it on now.
The same issue.
Echo cancellation is doing it. No question. Okay, it's coming up.
Chris says that Vanessa has a wonderful speaking voice. Definitely she has it. So Vanessa can just try rejoining.
Obviously, it's pretty crap when it comes to everything else. Okay, I'm trying to work out how, because if I'm in the meeting,
it's better now. It's better now, Vanessa. We can continue. Right. Thank you.
I'm in now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Better.
Yes. All good. Perfect. Yes. Yes. Okay. Please. Sure.
Oh my goodness.
Richard says the sound is non-compliant with standard 99.0.
Right. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I work with systems. I don't work with Teams or AI like related to sound. So I'm sorry. So hopefully, can you see the validation priority screen now? Okay. Awesome. Yep. And you can hopefully hear me too. So we changed the settings for the microphone, so that's all good as well. Okay. So basically, ensuring that you have clear expectations, that you're mapping the evidence to meet all of the requirements. And this isn't just assessment. This is everything you look at in your systems. And for example, we've mapped all the criteria you would use in your validation review to standards, to principles, to rules, and to risk areas of an organization. Then you go the next step, and that's actually identifying a severity weight for a risk. So that's going to depend on the AQF level of the qualification you're looking at. That's going to depend on the industry you're looking at. So whatever you're looking at in your assessment cohort and sample, you need to be able to map that back as to why you're looking at it. And it's not just because you need to do validation. we need to go well and truly beyond that. We need to look at the data that you can capture, but you can only capture that if it's well structured in a system. So what RTOs can do next. So with all this information, make sure you have a structured framework. So remember teams and their understanding of what current risks are and how validation can assist that in providing the data when they're doing it to those risks. Then you can have what you currently have regarding the data in your current systems. So a structured framework will adopt a validation framework to ensure consistent information, but also practices, not only for validation, but your assessment and other areas across your RTO. AI-supported tools, obviously, for evidence of analysis of that evidence, and that will reduce the time it takes to do your validation. Governance and continuous improvement, strengthening all of those roles, clarifying who does what, but where does the information come from, and how that is then built in from the outcomes of your validation into your assessment design. And then proactive validation. We need to move away from we only do this once a year to doing a regular interactive process. Again, this is where systems for validation using AI can assist because they are there all the time. If you're entering information at the end of each course, then it can start providing you that data visually and directly to whoever needs to see it to make any other decisions related to the funding for the next qualification for the next year or so on. So there are so many places that validation data isn't being used and should be used to grow your RTO. So consider also, don't just jump onto the first shiny AI tool that you see. Don't think every AI tool is going to give you what you need. Copilot might be great for a whole heap of things, but at the end of the day, you have to have a system that is developed directly for what you need it to be. You might use AI in one area, you might use AI in another, but are they talking to each other? That's another thing. Okay, so closing. Validation now is a strategic function. It is not you just do it once a year. It's not going to work like that. It needs to have smarter strategies and intelligent systems, and that will produce not only stronger outcomes, but better data to make those risk-based decisions. And also exploring how AI supports validation can grow your RTO in that if you know those areas that is lacking in your current systems, or you don't think you have the information or even the knowledge to know how does this all map together, then that's where you can gather some support throughout, both from the wonderful organisation that we're talking about here, but obviously also myself. We have a number of areas that can assist. So I will put it back to our Prit now and stop sharing, and hopefully we can actually hear Ben's information better than you could hear mine.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. The inputs that you've given for validation, they were very valuable, no matter how the sound was. It was perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your 20 plus years of experience. We now have Ben's presentation, and we'll be able to have a lot of more input on AI and validation and assessments. Ben, please go on. Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Apit, and thank you, Vanessa. It was an amazing session. Hopefully my sound is better. We can give a thumbs up.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Very excited. First of all, happy Friday, everyone. Super excited to discuss about the validation, the experience of the validation, and how we can simplify the validation, how we can use AI in the validation. And like I said, been worked in the RTO, validation is one of the part where I was already been behind. And I think how many RTO people that connect with me, because this is something we have so many things to do, so many things going on. And the validation, I was like, oh my God, they still need to be done. This is still pending. We haven't completed the schedule last 6 months. We haven't even done any validation in last 6 months. So I completely get it, the RTO struggle, been part of that. And it's always a bit challenging when you need to put all the different trainers in one room discussing all this part and do it in a right way and then continuously improve. So that's why we now say, okay, what can we do? How can we do? We'll discuss about some challenges in the validation, and then we go from there. Okay, so let me share my screen. Just bear with me. Okay. You able to see the screen? Okay, perfect. The agenda for today is the number the sector keep ignoring. So I'll give you some statistic, what is happening, what has happened in the last 4 or 5 years about the assessment system, why RTO still fail validation and what it cost, what the new standard is saying, 1.3, 1.5 specifically, the pre-validation and the validation. So we will discuss about the actual legislation part of it. We will discuss about the 4-step validation system that you can run yourself. We'll discuss about how can you utilize AI in validation, as Vanessa discussed that part, what we can do, what we can't do. So briefly, we'll touch those points as well. And then we have some free resources for you, validation plan, template, and the actual validation form that you can utilize for your RTO. Okay, let's get the ball rolling. So you see the 69% of assessment system failure from ASCO annual report. So 69% RTO actually non-compliant in the assessment system. And it has been consistent across. If you see, refer the annual report of ASCO from last 5 years, you will see it's consistent across that board. Assessment is non-compliant, and that also validation is part of that. So that's something we all need to address that, and it's been consistent. So we need to put the effort around that and say how we can improve in that area. Assessment is still number one non-compliance in every 5 years, and you know that assessment is the most important section. If any RTO fail into assessment, it can lead to a lot of trouble. Validation is thread that run through all of it, because if the validation is not being conducted properly, our evidence of the student not being checked properly, evidence is not being collected properly, therefore the certificate that been issued by the RTO is also not valid. And in the audit, if that been identified and if the gap is so wide, ASQA may consider put a more sanction and much more regulatory action around that area as well. Okay, so let's have a quick poll. When did you last complete the full validation with real student sample on the table? So let's see. What's the output we get? That's a quick 20-second.
I don't think I'll put my poll in. I do it every single day.
Yeah. Okay, so within the last 6 months, 57%. 6 to 12 months, 17%. More than a year ago, 21%. So let's say still got total 47 response. I think we got 160 people. Let's see if we get 60, 70. So then we get some sort of idea where we are at, and that helps us to also, customize this content as well. Okay, so we got 53 response so far, more than 50% people done in the last 6 months. Great. Great work. 18% 6 to 12 months. Again, it's a really good. More than a year ago. Again, like I said, when you are in the RTO, we are the busy. RTO is always busy. So many things going on, new standard, new things. It's always been challenge. Okay, let's move to the next slide. The real problem and what it cost. Everyone knows the validation is required. So why do RTO still fail? what we see based on the experience is no sound validation plan that actually meets. So when we do the internal audit or external audit, we find out that the plan has been not established correctly, not identified the risk properly, not knowing how many units to be covered. If they identify the bigger gap, what needs to be done? So around those area, which we see the sound planning is not there. The second part is no real schedule. It's just a document that sits somewhere. There is no been scheduled into some sort of calendar event or invite and all those things. We don't see those into a proper practices. Then this one I see the most because we do a good amount of training to the RTO how to do the conduct validation properly. It's not the tick and flick. It's not just a checking a small part. We also need to do, okay, so many RTOs just say, okay, we just took 2 student sample, but that's not the reality, or 3. We just need to have a proper sample size based on the calculator. What needs to be done when you're checking it? How you need to complete the form properly? What document needs to be retained? All those things needs to be clear to the team, so then they're able to conduct the validation properly. What we do when we identify there is a gap, what are the continuous improvement and what documents we need to keep, how we're going to improve our system. So what we see across all those area, there is a gap, and that's what we're going to cover in the session to help you to do the validation properly. What leads to fail, as I said, that it's written direction, condition of suspension, cancellation, and as you know that now from CRICOS RTO, there is no more addition to scope for 1 year. So then the ASQA or regulator has a lot more time to actually do a good quality checking or a thorough quality checking on the RTO. And that's what we all need to be mindful, that each and every area is important across the board. It's not the only standard 1.5 that leads to a non-compliant. It also leads to your AQF certificate. It also leads to your standard 1.4 as well. It also leads to your standard 1.3 as well. So it's not, validation is not the one thing. As you know, it's interconnected, and it gives you a non-compliance across whole heap of range of standards as well. Invalid validation, risk of invalid AQF certificate, as I said. And that also can create concern that ESCO might say that, okay, the certificate been issued for this period of time. We have some concerns, so might we need to do retraining and give you that, okay, what, and you need to prove that, okay, now you've done the proper way. So that also costs a significant of time, energy, and effort as well, if his validation not been done properly. A non-compliance is assessment and validation. So these are the things that it leads to. And that's what we're going to discuss, how we can do the things properly. I'll just quickly touch on the standard 1.3. It's not actually the validation part of it, but it's just a pre-use of assessment tool. It also kind of a checking that we need to do. So as per the standard, we need to make sure that the assessment is consistent with the requirement of training product. So make sure that whatever mentioned in the training.gov.au, our assessment actually cover that. And an assessment tool need to review prior to use to meet the principle of assessment and rules of evidence. So what principle of assessment and rules of evidence we have covered in our previous webinar. If you can look at it, I think I'll ask Arpit to put the link of the previous webinar as well. So if you want to know what the principle of assessment and rules of evidence, that will cover in that. In a way, before we using the assessment to the student and trainer, we just need to make sure that it's meeting the principle of assessment and rules of evidence. Kind of pre-use, kind of we call as a pre-validation as well, but that needs to be done. And the outcome of any of those review, we need to make sure that we need to make changes in those assessment tools. not only the assessment tool, if you're using LMS, those information need to be updated on LMS as well. So as an auditor or as a regulator, what anyone wants to see is that you review the tool thoroughly, that meets the principle of assessments. Then we say, okay, have you made any changes? And those changes actually been integrated or updated before actually the student going to use. So if they pick any random sample of 2 or 3 units, that's what the whole cycle auditor wants to see. And that's what you need to keep all those record around that. Okay, great. Let's move to the next slide. Standard 1.5. The assessment system quality issued by appropriate skill, credentialed person through a regular process of validating, practice, and judgment. It's a key performance indicator. We need to do validation at least once every 5 years, and a more frequent basis where organization become aware of risk, training outcome, any changes, product, relative feedback from the vet trainers and assessor and industry. So the important line here is a more frequent basis where organization become aware of risk. So I want to know from the audience that what are the risks that do you know that could affect the validation? If you can put it in chat for me, that would be great. Then we can learn from each other, we share the information with each other. Okay, let's see if anyone is there. Non-qualified person is validating. Thank you so much. Got one feedback, one risk. Changes in legislation. Yeah, great. Outdated assessment still in use. Lack of enough submission. Great. Seven risk categories. Vanessa said licensing requirement, wrong sample size collected, so many. Okay, great. Thank you, guys. So when we're preparing our plan, that's what regulator want us to consider those risks. There are different types of risk that we can part of it, and that need to be considered while we're doing this planning. And number one is that if that risk been identified by the regulator. Okay, so if you know that ECEC qualification, early childhood, certificate 3 in carpentry, all those area that been identified, there is a risk in that. So if I am delivering early childhood qualification, I need to make sure there is a high risk. And that's how I need to work out. Okay. Second, if there is a new trainer and assessor who do not have an experience of teaching or anything, that could be a risk as well. If we taken up 2 unit as a validation, both unit has a significant gap. So then it also considered as a risk, and then you might need to do more frequent sampling based on that. Also, there are some risks that if it's a high risk unit, let's say, for example, in construction, work safely at height, or if there is a regulation or any license-based unit that we have. So for example, a white card unit that give you a white card that work in the construction industry. So all those things, we need to make sure that we do add those units in your validation and also do a frequent review of that. Okay, so when you're developing this plan, you need to be mindful, because in the audit, that's what the auditor going to ask you. How you define those risks? How you utilize a risk-based approach? What are your planning? Also in your policy, procedures, and document, it should be very clear how you define the risk. Because if you don't define the risk, you're not going to meet the requirement there. Okay, then 5C is saying utilize a risk-based approach to determine the component of the assessment system to be validated and the sample size assessment there are to be validated. So what component we're going to do? and what are the sample size that we're going to use. We got a lot of question, what is the correct sample size? There is a sample size calculator available. We will put the link as well in our email. We send it to you guys. And the sample size, we need to put the number. And I think there is a guidance on how to put those numbers around sample size. We will put that as well. And in our validation form, we have included those information. So if you put the accuracy and things that it give you a some amount of sample size. So let's say if you have 100 students, and the sample size could come based on your confidence and accuracy. It could be from, let's say 60 to 80, 85, 90 as well. And based on that, you need to actually validate those student file. If I have 100+ student done that particular unit, and if I only validate 2 unit sample, it's not sufficient. And how many people can connect with it? Number E, the validation is undertaken by one or more people who collectively have industry competency, the knowledge, TAE, understanding of current practices. So we need to make sure that whoever doing a validation, either a one person or a group of people meeting all those requirements. The outcome of an assessment validation is solely not determined by a person who designed or delivered the training or assessment. So if I am the trainer and assessor who deliver this, I cannot make the judgment. I can be part of the validation, but I cannot make the judgment of the validation outcome. Or also, if I have designed the assessment tool, then I cannot solely make the decision that the tool and the things are actually accurate and correct. So that also we need to mindful. If RTO do not have someone, then they can engage the people from the industry. Also maybe an other college, they can do a collaborative way as well. Then how assessment outcome or assessment value are used to inform changes in the assessment system. As Vanessa said in the previous session, that how you improving from those validation. That's what also wants to see. What are your continuous improvement once you find a gap? No one is perfect. No RTO is perfect. Yes, there could be something happen, but how you identify them, how you identify, and based on that, how you put them into a risk and how you continuously improve from that. So I give you an example that we were doing a validation for one of the client. We find out, okay, that first 2 unit that we validated for that qualification have a significant gap. And the judgment also not consistent between the different trainers. So what we need to do, we need to say, this is a risk area. Now we're going back to the schedule, and we not only reviewing a unit, we're going to review the 10 units. And now, what are the issues identified that we discuss in the meeting, validation meeting, identify the gaps, and then work toward the continuous improvement. And where there was a significant issue in terms of student work, we go and say, okay, we might need to reassess those students as well. So those are the things that you need to do an approach based on what outcome you get from the validation. Okay. So I hope you guys are clear now what actually exactly the validation requirement, because if we don't know what is required, then what we do, it might not work as well. Okay, let's go to the next slide. The 2-year trap point, I think this has been discussed many times. The general rule of the assessment that we need to keep the assessment for 2 years, we all know, but the standard 1.5 be required for 5-year validation cycle. So if you destroy the evidence in 2 years, but the validation you need to keep it for 5 years, you can never prove the judgment was right. So this is something I see in a very common. So I thought I need to integrate that into and informing you that validation outcome, including that the student that you're sampling, you need to keep it for 5 years. fixed. Retain validation record, sample evidence in a full cycle. Okay, now let's say what can we do to solve that? So let's first everything start with the plan. If we don't have a plan, we end up doing something which is not required and we're wasting the time, energy, effort. And at the end, we find out that, okay, whatever we did so far does not make sense and we might need to do everything again. So that's why I always say that the plan is very important and the first step. List every training product on the scope, risk rate each enrollment related matter, the changes, the complaints, the new trainer, licensing, high cost, any of those things. So identify the training product, make sure you're risk rating them properly. Maybe you can work out this way, the high risk one, you put them into year 1 and 2, and the low risk one could be anywhere in the cycle. And this is not been advised by a squad, but this is again how your process is and how you do it. What I see if is a high risk, technically I prefer, or anyone would prefer to do it first thing. Because if the high risk, if there are any gaps or anything, we identify quickly. And even if we might need to reassess some student, it's your student still there, and then you're able to fix it up. Write a rationale. The rationale is your compliance evidence. What is your rationale? How you identify that this is the risk? And you need to explain that very clearly in the rationale that, okay, why this is a low risk, why this is a high risk. And like I said, if you go on SQA website, identify there's so many qualifications they listed as a high risk, some of the unit they listed as high risk. And if you put them as a low risk, or if you don't identify the risk, that in the audit, they will ask you a question. That, okay, why did you make that judgment that this is a low risk where regulator identify this as a high risk? So the validation plan is just not listing the unit. It just actually clearly crafted a document where you actually know what regulator identify, what are the risks of the licensing unit, and you go through that properly with the team and finalize it. Okay, so we're gonna give you a template, but again, it's every RTO scope is different. You go and sit with your team, make sure you complete that properly, or even if already have one, I would suggest that you review after this session, say if they're meeting it. And I give you a hint, put the attention on the risk rate, the risk area. Majority of one we seeing not doing it correctly. Calendar event. So once we plan, then we go to schedule. So like you put the calendar invite event in your Outlook calendar or Google calendar across, you put the who is the validator, book all the dates. Yes, there could be keep changes slightly here and there, but at least you have scheduled there. Trigger review built in, the product change, if there any product or any unit change or unit superseded, all those things, if the compliance spike, there's a new assessor, pull validation forward, again, based on the risk part. So it's not like once you're done in 5 years, you're not gonna touch it. As Vanessa said, it could be a live document. Let's say ask one next month, put one qualification under 4 unit under the high risk. You might need to review that plan again. That's okay. Yeah, maybe we need to add those training product a little bit early because now this could be a risk area. So we utilizing those risk signals and make sure our training and our validation align to it. Hopefully this makes sense. Assign an owner. So if there is no owner, not going to happen. If one responsible person that, okay, it's your job to make sure the validation happen on time, evidence been collected, and then do those review quarterly that, okay, even if you can do monthly, that would be amazing. But if you can't do monthly, the quarterly also good idea. Say, okay, in the quarter, how many unit we supposed to validated? Have we validated, not validated? What is the issue? Is there any new risk emerge from it? Do we need to swap the date? Do we need to change it? Do we need to add more unit? and across the board. So consider those things and those record, keep those record, because that's what you need to show that in audit. Okay, let's move to the next part. Conduct it properly. It's right sample, as we say, ASQA sample size calculator, increase sample size where risk is emerged. As we say, we will put the links, and I think there's ASQA has the webinar around that part as well. It gives all the information, but we will put you the links that will help you. Right team. I have seen many times that the people sometime in the validation panel or who are doing the validation sometimes do not have a clear idea what to do in the validation, what to check in the validation. How are we going to define the consistency? When we sampling the student record, what do we need to check? Sometimes we just also need to make sure that we put 5 student question and review those 5 students same time, because we just want to make sure there's no collision between the student as well. And also review the question by question, discuss with the team, and then make sure you are knowledgeable to do things properly. You also know how to review the training package requirement. Also, you review it in a way that, okay, this is not logical. This is, the instruction is not clear. Just review. When you review it, you need to have an open mind. If somebody is already a trainer there who taught that or collect the evidence and sign off, they might sometimes put a pressure of getting, oh, now this is fine. This is how we do it. This is not there. This is how it was then before. But like I said, you need to review as open. Consider, put yourself in a student's shoes as, okay, is the instruction are clear enough to understand anyone? If I give this instruction to 10 different students, will they understand the same way? The same way as assessor instruction and marking. If I give this to 5 different assessors, will they understand the same way? And if you ask those prompting questions to yourself and being open, you're able to see that there could be a gap. So make sure you assemble the right team. Having a TAE and a teacher doesn't mean you know the validation properly. Identify who's good in validation, or if no one in the team, make sure you learn how to do it properly, because we also do some validation sessions as well. So that assemble the right team. Real evidence, completed student work review against the rules of evidence. Would an independent assessor reach the same judgment? Ask that questions. Record all the outcome. As we said that we need to keep all those records as part of the audit. And if we do all those things properly, most probably your validation works really well. And while you're doing the validation, is not only the assessment, you also need to make sure your learner resources align with it. So for example, if question number 5 is saying something, but the information around that topic do not have in the learner guide, then they'd also create a non-compliance. It could say that we haven't trained the student, so how are we going to assess the student? So not only the assessment, you also need to review your learner guide as well to make sure that everything is okay. So yes, when you say all the product work together to complete the get picture. Okay, so we're going to give you the free resources. So it will help you to give you a kickstart. So use AI in validation. As Vanessa said that, the AI could be useful to reduce your time, energy, effort, but if you use it properly. If you put it on ChatGPT, the student work and say, oh, can you validate this unit for me? It's not going to happen. And even if you do it, it's going to be wrong.
Please don't do that, everybody. Please don't do that.
So what I'm saying that whatever AI that you're trying to use, or even the Vanessa has the product as well, what you see, you test yourself as well. You need to comfortable when ASQA or auditor regulator going to ask you a question. that, okay, how you utilizing AI and where the human makes the judgment. If it's not clear, then it's still going to be a problem. So you can, if you use the AI effectively, it can reduce your time, energy, effort. If you don't use it AI properly, it's actually worse than what you are doing is physical way. Because then it's not going to be right. So be very mindful how you use it, what tool you use it, what are the protocol and system you have. And if you are happen to use any of the AI tool, please, please, please contextualize your policy around it. Okay, because if your policy doesn't say anything about those tools, but you're doing it, then it will not make sense. Okay, so make sure that things are connected together. So every time that's why it's one simple strategy I follow always. If anything is changed or need to be changed, I ask myself, what are the places I need to update this information? Do I need to update in the policy? Do I need to update in the form? Do I need to update in the handbook or staff handbook, wherever? I always ask this question. It's not only help you in validation, anywhere, any changes you do, because sometimes what happens, if we make small changes in one place, then 4 different places is the same. So, and that's what the consistency issue we get. Okay. So let's say AI is a threat when it's unmanaged, as I said as well. And ASQA already know, the regulator already know that academic cheating risk authenticity is one of the hardest rule to satisfy, and one of the things that regulator looking actively. So when you're doing a validation, you also need to make sure that AI cheating, another part, is also being considered. AI is a weapon if it's first pass mapping, tool checking against the unit, sampling support, AI detection, assessor variance, or identify any grading pattern, and drafting validation record, and then human review and validate and finalize. If you do those all way, then it will make sense. So any AI tool, anything, or even internal system you build through AI, make sure you test them properly and test them with different units and different people and say, okay, is this consistent? And then put them into a human review and say, okay, now we've done the few testing, we are comfortable, we're able to answer all this thing. Update your system and processes, and then start utilizing it. Okay, a credential, human determine every validation outcome. AI can't hold TAE credential and standard 1.5E, as Vanessa said in the session as well. AI does not have TAE credential, AI does not have vocation competency, AI does not have currency. So don't 100% rely on AI. And that's why you say every tool also say that AI can make mistakes. So we need to review it. Okay, great. The summary part, build your 5-year validation plan. Again, important part, risk part. And you don't have to say all the units. You can start, if you're confident, you can start with the 2 unit. If it's a risk-based qualification, you might have more units. So again, how you define those risks and how you increasing the sampling, again, it's up to the RTO. Where I see if that is a high risk qualification, then regulator expect that you might do more than 2 units there. If you identify risk, then you might need to do more than that. So you need to make those judgment and keep all those records. So the risk part is the key, and is the risk part. That's where the ASQA or auditor going to ask you a lot of questions. Schedule event with the name, date, and trigger review. As we discussed, validate the judgment, not the paperwork, real sample, real team, assemble the right team, and keep the validation record plus sample past 2 years. Keep it for 5, not for 2 years. because that they ask a question, evidence, and put AI governance on one page before ESCO asks. So again, if you use AI, make sure the governance and everything is aligned. We will give you those forms and the validation form and the 5-year validation plan template, which you can give you a good start. And you can customize however you want, adding things wherever you want, and then you can start from there. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully I will be able to deliver some value to you. And I'm over to Arpit.
Thank you so much, Ben and Vanessa. Ben, the presentation was really nice. We learned a lot of things, and I personally learned a lot of validation part. Thank you so much. Now, I would really want my colleague Mahi to take all the questions that we have noted down, and
Sure.
everyone, if we have any questions from Ben or Vanessa, you can just type it in the chat box with the name of Ben or Vanessa to whomsoever you want to ask that question, and they can alternatively take those questions as well. They'll be happy to answer. Please put it in the chat box. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And once again, first of all, thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Ben. Both of you. It was a wonderful explanation. But again, I just wanted to ask every one of you, if you have any more questions, just put them as many questions as you can in the chat box. We will try to cover as many as we can. Also, this is your chance to speak to Vanessa or Ben. I think there was Carolyn. She was asking so many questions to Vanessa as well. Carolyn, if you wanted to speak, we can unmute you and you can start chatting with her if you have more questions. And maybe you can just raise your hand and one of our team members, they can unmute you. And by the time one of you who decide who wanted to speak today, I'll take one of the question which was noted down here that says, can a trainer who is doing TAE is working under guidance of other trainer be part of validation? I think Vanessa or Ben, one of you
Can I answer that question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So it really depends on those roles and responsibilities that Ben was referring to. So we need to be very clear about who can do what and what experience they have. If you aren't going to put that trainer and assessor in front of a classroom, are you really wanting them to look across the whole assessment product? You really have to work out what they can and they can't do. And it's also very unfair to chuck somebody in the deep end of a situation where, well, if they're the only person that you have, that's not a good enough reason why they should be included in the validation process.
Nice. Thank you.
I just want to add on that. It's that as I said, it's a group of the whole team. If that is the only person in the validation, then the answer is no. But if you can be a whole team where we're meeting all the requirement, then that person can join. Because if there's a new person join the validation, then they're going to learn the skill as well. So the goal is, it's not that you only have 1 people, 2 person or 3 people. It just, you can have 10 people in the validation as well. It's just that as Vanessa said, the role is clearly defined. Ultimately, what we need to make sure we cover up the credential policy requirement and also industry currency clearly. Apart from any additional people can also be joined. Also, an admin person can join the validation as well. It's not that they cannot join again, but also need to meet all the requirements. I hope just to make it all clear properly.
Thanks, Ben. There's one more question just came here that says, what are the most common mistake RTO makes during validation?
Not doing it for a start, not asking the right questions, not knowing what they're doing it for, not knowing what they want to get as an outcome. How many answers would you like?
Okay, so Vanessa, that was great. So again, like I said, there are lots of range of concern. I do find that in the internal audit, or a good amount of RTO do not do any validation. Okay, so ask yourself, the second thing which we see is the plan is not clear. They do not know how to create a plan. Sometimes they put all the 36 unit in the qualification as a validation. Sometimes they have 10, 12 qualification and they have 200 units and they put all the 200 unit in validation, which technically cannot be possible and you can't give a good quality outcome.
Well, Ben, just on that team, who would you get, because I think I asked the question myself actually on the chat earlier on, who would you have in that planning team?
So the planning team means that, again, how we plan. So a person who knows the validation. So if I'm drafting a validation team, what I would do, number one, I need to make sure that person who meeting the credential policy does not train or deliver or create that assessment. So if I am the one who deliver that training product, I need to have someone else who meet those requirements. So I find that person. Then all on top of it, we might put somebody from the industry. So let's say we're just doing a construction unit. So maybe a carpenter could be part of the validation team as well. And that's how we assemble that 3 or 4 people and then do the thing properly. So that's what I was mean. Some other concern that if the plan is not properly, you cannot execute the properly. The second common thing I see is the risk. That's why I put a lot of emphasis on risk. If I ask them a question, how you define the risk, they don't have a clue.
Yeah.
And so if you get only one thing from this session, learn how to define the risk and learn how to defend when anyone asks you.
Yep.
And constantly update the plan. And then after heaps of it, they don't do actual sample size. If sample size says 30 students need to be done, oh, we did only 3.
Yeah. Yep.
And even if you open that 3, they did not even check the observation been done. There's no comment. They still, okay, validation is fine. The validation is not done correctly. So those are the range of concern and range of mistakes we are seeing. And therefore, the reason you see in last 5 years, there's 69% non-compliance across assessment system. That's the reason, because we do not clearly know how to do those proper validation that leads to improvement of assessment. So then you don't get the non-compliance. So it's like a cycle.
Oh, absolutely a cycle. The other thing I see too is that a lot of providers have done something, they've got a report, they're trying to get industry engagement. They give this poor person who's in industry, who has nothing to do with training and assessment, this massive report related to assessment. And they go, what do you think? And they've just gone, what do you want them to say? They have no idea what you've just given them. I would say if somebody did that to me, I'd go, yeah, it's all good, and then walk away to think, I don't want to do that again. That's what they do. They go, yep, everything's fine. So if you're going to engage with industry, ask them industry specific, contextualized questions. What do you want from somebody who comes out with this qualification? What actual on the job, straight away skills and knowledge do they need? What technology are you using in industry? And then embed that into your assessment method, assessment content. All those things need to be considered. Don't do the old thing of giving them a huge validation report and go, you work it out. It's up to you as an RTO to gather the information from them, not expect them to do your job.
Thank you, Vanessa. And Ben, there's one more question we can cover. The question is, do we need to validate every unit within the high risk qualification or only specific units?
Vanessa, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Ben has actually already said this. It has to do with your sample size and understand what your risk is. If the other way I see it is, if you've got a validation system that you are taking forever to do, you will not be able to get through everything. Therefore, you have to actually identify which ones you need to do. But if you have a system that you can get through a number of them, then you will get more information. Because when you think about it, if you are only looking at 2 out of 20, that sample itself of just 2 units in a full qualification is a really risky situation, because you're not going to see good patterns across multiple areas. Now, qualifications can have a number of different cores, so they can have a number of different electives, they can take it from other training packages. You're inviting other risks associated across a whole qualification. So go back to what Ben said, work out your risk. If you know the risks for your organization and work out which ones affect which qualification, if you have a contract that is funded, that's immediately going to be a risk, because not only do you have to do what's required from the basics of the standard, but you now have a contract related activity. Some contracts say you can't do RPL across a certain number of units. So if your assessment methods refer to RPL for those units, then you're immediately putting yourself at a higher risk. There are so many ways to to risk analysis, but also what to actually look for. So there is no one saying you have to do this many units and it has to be across this period of time and so on. The standards have tried to give you a guide, but it's up to you as an RTO to provide that specific area of expertise, knowing what risks are for what unit and what qualification.
Yeah, great, Vanessa. And like I give you just simple example. We were doing an internal audit for certificate 3 in individual support. We checked that RTO done 2 units. Both of them there was no written feedback. There's no observation feedback. The questions were, pretty much similar to the students, all those things. So we thought, oh, this is high risk. So then we said, okay, now you need to expand this into maybe, let's say, do a 6 or 7 unit and see what's happening. And based on that, we need to do a continuous improvement. Say, okay, these are the concern. Now we need to might reassess those students for those unit and also do a proper continuous improvement plan that how this not going to happen again. And that's what the ASPA wants to see. If you see the self-assurance, governance part, what the new standard is asking, that you're doing your self-assurance, improving your own system and do a proper governance. So as I'm saying that identify what's your risk and take the action accordingly. Every organization is different, every qualification is different, every situation is different. But if you have some protocol that if you identify the risk, this is what you do. And then if you have a clear structures and the meeting minute notes and all those part, then you are good to go.
Thank you, Ben. There are 2 more questions. We have time, we can still take it. So one of the question is from Chris. And first of all, Chris, we really wanted to say thanks because you are giving all the nice suggestions while we had the audio issue. So thanks to you first. And the question from him is, what about the audit consistency across the states? Like Queensland audit wants more handwritten assessment feedback, written on evidence basically, and New South Wales wants more dates recorded for the training session, and Victoria doesn't care, and Western Australia is very difficult, also need to be perfect every assessment. So, and Chris, also if you wanted to speak to one of them, I would say we would love to hear your voice. We can speak to you as well. Let us know.
There's lots of things to consider, isn't there? So I guess this really makes you aware of your environment in which you're actually delivering and assessing. And when you start going across states and then dealing with different regulators or different requirements, you have to be very aware of those. From the providers that I've worked with, a lot of them don't do the same qualification across all areas. They might do one specifically for one area, but another qualification in another area. So being aware of which ones require which is great. However, I would suggest you increase the quality across everywhere. So increase all controls, do better quality checks on all dates, better quality checks on and professional development for your trainers and assessors to know what the requirements are, if it's written or if it's not written. A lot of systems, learner management systems, when they're doing assessments online, they have a space for feedback. I see examples of none of it completed. I see the complete opposite where it's all completed, all within same organisation. So consistency across the organisation, moderation of assessment itself between assessors across different locations. There are so many ways to include information of activities on a daily basis, on a routine basis, across your validation process. So know where this information lies, have a mechanism to share it all as part of your validation, and consider everything you have. There's a lot of data across a lot of RTO systems that people just don't even consider as part of their validation process. So don't rely on one particular way of doing it. Be aware of how it's always done across all different areas. So yeah, I feel for those providers that have to deal across multiple regulators, but you play in the sandpit, you have to play by the rules.
Yeah, we do play in the space of national. However, different states want different records. For instance, the training plan for a New South Wales apprentice will look totally different to the training plan of a Queensland apprentice,
Yes.
which is different again to Vic. And the way we do things in relation to dates is different. We do dates differently state by state, which is crazy. There needs to be a national system. We will bend over backwards to be audit compliant every state. But I guess what I'm saying is in the validation, we're going, oh, well, this is a Victorian person, so their training plan looks different. And we know last time we had an audit, the auditor wanted XYZ. Oh, but that's different to Queensland because we know up here the auditor commented that they wanted handwritten, which, like, as if we're going to go back to that horse and carriage style. We need to do things in a modern way that's efficient, but we're still pandering to the different state regulations. And when we ask the question to the state, we don't get much in the way of detailed answers of what they want. So that's, in other words, consistency is what Ben's saying, and you're bringing up some excellent points, Vanessa. I guess what I'm saying is there's not enough consistency in vet, especially in funded, that is.
Yes, yeah, it makes it very, very difficult. I would just go straight back to your ministers or anybody in a public view who can actually include your voice into areas. But under the current situation of whichever political party is in, we won't go into that right now. However, that is not assisting.
Chris, I can understand, we were dealing with one of the situation in Victoria is where WorkSafe says that the assessment has to be printed and handwritten. So what sometimes, we don't have an option because, the standard itself say we need to meet all the state and territories and all of the legislation as well. So, but what can we do in the validation is when we're doing this white card unit, we just put the special condition there in the one column. So at whoever doing the validation, they exactly know that this special condition also need to be double checked.
The same with the system when it's being developed, you can stipulate different variations depending on location or contract or standard or, for example, there's organisations that will, everybody from an RTO perspective has to do the standard. Right? So that's the baseline. If you're then also an organisation, such an enterprise RTO, that has an ISO thing, right? That's a whole nother standard, but you can use the same sort of data. So the simplicity of understanding what you can use across multiple facets of your organisation, the better. But you are going to play, as Chris is, and I thank you so much for your question, Chris, is the fact that the vet sector, when you're trying to grow in it, is very complex. It's very complicated. It needs to be very aware of all of these risks. Training plans are one, especially across those skilled areas that require them under a contract. But there is plenty of others. So in this space, as Ben was talking about the team doing the planning, you have to be very aware of how your whole ecosystem or your RTO works.
Sorry. Just please, if it's not, we don't have time, but just logbooks, like that's another one, training logbooks. It comes into the validation. The student is completing a logbook, but only in Queensland. They're not completing one in New South Wales or Victoria. They should do one in Perth. Oh, let me think. It's like, seriously, a logbook. Let's get it right. If it's an apprentice, are they doing a logbook? Yes. If it's electrical, they certainly are. But in my sector, it depends on which state you're in. And I'm saying the logbook comes into the validation, we review it together. The RTO is providing a quality process to completing the logbooks, but at the moment, it's not clear which state they need to be done in. And that's nothing to do with us. We want to know, but we're just not getting the answers. And so, that's another little thing which comes into the validation. So anyway.
Yeah, Chris, we don't have a choice. We just go by the books at this stage.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
I vote Chris to go into politics.
Okay,
Yes,
do we
maybe
have
one day.
any question?
Yes, we have one more last question. We have 10 minutes. Might as well take that question as well. And thank you so much, Chris. I'm super happy that you have decided to speak to us. So, and well, we'll move on to the last question that we have. The question is, can a business trainer validate assessment tool or review assessment judgments for civil construction or carpentry units if they do not hold a relevant industry competency and current industry experience through they have the TAE? So whether they can do it or they can't, like if they have business assessment, if they're the business trainer, I mean. I hope my question was clear. If it is not, I'm happy to repeat again. So
Vanessa, you
basically
want to
what
answer
he's, no.
Chuck it to me all the time, Ben. You've already answered this. We've gone back to the roles and
I'm just being a
responsibilities.
gentleman to, just give it to you also.
So gentleman-like. Yeah, again, it comes down to what is it in their validation process are they actually doing? What other qualifications they might have? They might be delivering business, but they might actually have a secret squirrel qualification in carpentry. For example, I've got one in a degree of science and aquaculture. Don't know, and that's where that really good information about your assessor's vocational competency and currency really pop in here. They might be employed to do one particular area, but they may actually have experience in something else because they're volunteering it, they're doing things outside of work, they have other experience in certain areas. So the answer is find out from what else they might have. Be clear about what they can and they can't do. I would suggest they can't give you any, if they have nothing else other than business experience and qualifications, they can't give you any information from a contextual point of view from content related to the unit in the assessment. They may also not be able to give you anything related to the method of assessment. So what criteria are you getting them to be a part of in the actual process for you to think that they would be good? It's not, you just don't chuck anybody in there to go, okay, here you go, you'll be right, follow the process. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and I'll just go back to the basic, like this is standard 1.5. What it's saying that we just need to have one or more people who hold the TAE vocation competency. So in the question, it says it has to be related to the civil, industry currency, again the same, and Wetpedia. If they meet all those requirements, one or more people can do it. And in your question, this person not meeting those requirements. So indirectly, now you can see, you can yourself answer this question that this person cannot do solely completing the validation.
Thank you.
Mahi, any more question?
Pretty much now that's all. Like the same person is asking the last thing, which is I just saw the comment right now. It says, if there are only small number of completed assessment, can an RTO combine assessment submission from 2 years or more for validation sampling, like assessment completed under difficult version of an assessment tool be included in one validation activity?
Yeah, I'll go with this one. So if you've just started a qualification and you only have a certain small number of actual completed assessments, I always go, if you're going to do the process, why not actually identify those that are currently going through it so you can pick up things right now and fix them before they complete. It might be also ones that you've withdrawn, because it's not just about, like, you don't want to do after the horse is bolted, so to speak. It's too late if you've got a whole heap of stuff that have come and gone. But if you are looking at completed, withdrawn, active, all those things, and different, like for RPL, different assessment methods across it, then I would suggest do it. Do that if you can provide lots of information across your RTO. The other part to consider too here is if you have multiple versions of assessment, ensure you have multiple versions of the master. So you can answer the question of what was right at the time and then see the difference between if you've changed it from one version to the next. What was the improvement? Why was it done? And did it actually do what you wanted it to do? Because improving for the sake of improving is an absolute waste of time. Most assessment masters and methods and tools are changed because units of competency change, because they absolutely have to do it. and go beyond changing the code at the top. There is a lot of information that is changed throughout units. So if you're going from one to another in the same sample, make sure you have the big picture of the assessor at the time, the master at the time, what were the other conditions. I mean, there are going to be people who go through reviews, or they probably already have, of a student that's gone through assessments during COVID. That situation is very different to maybe what they're going through now. Same as unit, same assessment tool, different situation, different assessor. So consider all of the parts. As Ben was saying in his presentation, there is a lot of different ingredients you can include and should include, and the sampling process should be the same. Don't leave anything out.
Yep, great. I think detailed explanation. I think you covered pretty much everything. So again, it's like in the 2-year cycle, you can pick different stages and different outcome. As Vanessa said, the withdrawal completed, not yet completed, all those things. That could be part of the validation and give you an idea that are they doing it properly or not. And also what I suggest, sometimes I pick the different assessor as well. So the more variation is the better. That's what the good point of the validation.
Thank you so much, Ben, and thanks, Vanessa. Pretty much that's all. We have covered this time all the questions, and once again, thank you, Ben. Thank you, Vanessa. There was excellent presentation. Thank you, the entire team of VET Resource VET Advisory Group for organizing this. Thank you so much, Arpit, for everything, basically, from start to end. So yeah, thanks all. And we hope to see you again next month on the 28th of August. We're going to have another webinar for all of you guys. And also, after this, you're going to receive a feedback form as well. So if you have any more questions, if you haven't added there, please make sure you add them on the feedback form. We normally make videos to answer those questions. So please follow us on LinkedIn, on Instagram. You'll get all your answers there as well. So up until now, thank you so much once again. And you all have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.